Welcome back to the Gridiron Expert. The last 7 regular season meetings between Oklahoma and Texas have been decided by 1 possession. In the famous words of Lane Kiffin, get your popcorn ready because that's exactly what's going to happen on Saturday morning. So welcome back, guys, to the Gridiron Expert, ready to break down number 6 Oklahoma, number 21 Texas, the Red River Showdown in Dallas on Saturday. Here to break down everything you need to know for this game and our official prediction. As always, make sure to continue to like, comment, subscribe, share our videos, and check out everything down in that description below. Namely, go check out our expert picks over on our website, thegridironexpert.com. Some of the best college football and NFL spread picks you will find on the market. It has been for the last 3 years. It's going to be again this year. Make sure to go sign up for those today. One of the best decisions you'll make all season long. Again, the link for that down in the description below, thegridironexpert.com. Sign up so you get this week's picks and, of course, the picks for the rest of the year as well. So again, guys, it's one of the best rivalries in all of college football. It's Oklahoma and Texas, and we've got another top 25 matchup between these two programs. Again, the last 7 regular season meetings have been decided by 1 possession, Oklahoma winning 5 of those, including a 4 overtime victory over Texas just last year. But this game, guys, holds a lot of weight. Holds so much weight. You've got an Oklahoma team that obviously has their eyes set on going back to the college football playoff. They're 5-0, but the 4 wins over FBS opponents have all come by 1 possession. They haven't been against the best opponents, Tulane, West Virginia, Nebraska, and Kansas State. You've got a Texas team that has seen a resurgence in the last few weeks. Looked horrible in their 40-21 defeat at Arkansas, but has not lost since. And obviously, this is a huge game in terms of the Big 12 standings. Oklahoma wins. They continue to widen the gap among everybody else in the conference. If Texas wins, though, all bets are off on who will win that conference and who will be meeting in Arlington for that Big 12 championship game. So we take a look at the offense, guys. Let's kind of break down both sides of the ball here and both teams before we actually share who we believe wins this game. You take a look at Oklahoma. They're living up to expectations, right? From a Lincoln Riley offense and from a Lincoln Riley perspective, they're putting up the numbers we would expect them to. It just hasn't felt like that. It hasn't felt like a normal Oklahoma team. Maybe it's because they're not blowing people out of the water. Maybe it's because they're not scoring as many points as we're used to. But they're still averaging 38.4 points per game. They're still averaging 433.4 yards per game. And Spencer Rattler is still putting up solid numbers. Over 1,200 yards, 10 touchdowns, and 4 interceptions. And he's arguably coming off his best performance of the year, where he went 22 for 25 with 243 yards and 2 touchdowns in their 37-31 victory over Kansas State. He did that 1 week after getting booed at home against West Virginia and the fans calling for him to get benched. Fans are very fickle. They are for every fan base. But Rattler, to me, is still one of the better quarterbacks in the country. Is he living up to the hype and the expectations put before him before the season started? Probably not. But he's still better than the majority of the quarterbacks out there, and that will once again show on Saturday. One thing that's been really interesting with Oklahoma, though, is the fact their run game, to me, has just been about mediocre in comparison to recent years. And obviously, they don't have a quarterback as mobile as the likes of Kyler Murray or Jalen Hurts. But the run game is averaging just 155 rushing yards per game, which is not a bad mark, but again, not nearly as good and not nearly as dynamic as it has been in years past. Kennedy Brooks has 318 yards on the year. Eric Gray has 245 yards on the year. Eric Gray transferring in, of course, from Tennessee. This game, again, the running game not nearly as explosive as we've seen in years past. The offense, maybe as a whole, not nearly as explosive as we've seen in years past. But if they cut down the turnovers, and Rattler will and has a little bit, they are efficient, and they're getting the job done. Everybody wants to harp on Oklahoma and how they've been unimpressive lately, and I do agree with that, but at the end of the day, the Sooners are still 5-0, and that is all that matters. You take a look at Texas. They have seen a major transformation on offense because Steve Sarkisian woke up and decided to start Casey Thompson. And if you listen to us back in the preseason, we talked about Texas on our prediction video, and everywhere else, we said Casey Thompson needs to be the starter for Texas. He is the starter for Texas. He gives Steve Sarkisian and the Longhorns the best chance to win, and we thought he fit the mold in that offense perfectly. What Sarkisian wants to run down in Austin, Thompson fit that mold perfectly. But he's had to start Hudson Card for the first 2 games. He beat Louisiana, got beat pretty bad by Arkansas. Switched to Casey Thompson, who's now already thrown for over 700 yards, 9 touchdowns, 3 interceptions, has also rushed for over 100 yards, 3 more touchdowns, and in the last 3 games that he has started, they dropped 58 points on Rice, 70 points on Texas Tech, and 32 points in a 5-point victory on the road at TCU. Once they made that switch, everything started clicking for Texas. And not only do you have Casey Thompson, but you have arguably the best running back in all of college football right now, in Bijan Robinson, 652 rushing yards and 7 touchdowns on the year. You factor in that RPO-style offense with a dangerous dual-threat quarterback in Thompson, with one of the best running backs in the country in Robinson, who's not only a force in between the tackles, just running the ball, period, but has become a force out of the backfield as well, and Texas' offense is one of the most difficult to stop in the country. 204.2 passing yards per game, 268.6 rushing yards per game on average. This Texas offense is for real, and again, I credit that a lot to Sarkisian, but I credit that mostly to the switch of Casey Thompson at quarterback. When you look at the defense for Oklahoma, the major question for them is, how do you stop Texas, right? We just harped and said how great this Texas offense is and how great they've looked these last few weeks. How does Oklahoma stop it? Because again, when you look at the numbers, Oklahoma's defense looks solid. 19 points per game they're allowing. Just 83.6 rushing yards per game they're allowing. But there is no doubt in my mind, I'm sure no doubt in yours either, that Texas is the toughest team and the toughest offense that Oklahoma will have faced to date. Texas better than Tulane, than Nebraska, than West Virginia, than Kansas State. Texas owns the edge, I believe, over all of those teams, especially on the offensive side of the ball. Oklahoma is allowing 241.4 passing yards per game. So this is a game where Casey Thompson might be able to exploit the Oklahoma secondary a little bit if he can make his throws. We've seen Thompson miss on a handful of throws. Hasn't turned the ball over that much, but he's had open receivers. We've seen him overthrow, throw it too low, throw it a little too hard. He's got to have the right touch on the ball. That's also something that Hudson Card struggled with too, but I believe Thompson, he's getting there. And again, we can focus on that 83.6 rushing yards per game number all we want. At the end of the day, Oklahoma has yet to face a team that has run the ball as effectively and as powerfully as Texas. The best argument you could maybe make for that would be Nebraska, with a dual-threat quarterback in Adrian Martinez. But Martinez is that team. All it is on offense is Adrian Martinez. Texas has a little bit more to it than that. When you look at Oklahoma as well, guys, really the key for them is focusing on staying home, right? Oklahoma, they haven't forced many turnovers. They've only forced 9 turnovers this year, and 6 of those came in games against Tulane and Western Carolina. So 2/3 of the turnovers they have forced came in the first 2 games of the year against weaker opponents, even though they barely beat Tulane. The key for Oklahoma defensively is stay home, right? Shut down Bijan Robinson. Make sure you slow him down. Make those open field tackles on him. Again, he's a hard-nosed runner where he will pick up yards after contact. You've got to take him down. Secondly, make sure you keep Casey Thompson in the pocket. If I'm Oklahoma, yeah, our secondary hasn't been great. I'd like to force Thompson to still beat me through the air, though, and not be able to pick up third downs with his legs, not be able to get short yardage situations and figure those out with his legs. If you can contain him in the pocket to force him to get the ball out quicker, make a bad throw, get a sack, whatever, that's great. Don't allow Thompson to run and extend the play. That's going to be the key for Oklahoma. When you look at Texas, defensively, statistically, when you look at the numbers, not as good as Oklahoma. By the numbers, they're not as good as Oklahoma. They've allowed 224.4 passing yards per game. That number's better, but they're allowing 170 rushing yards per game. And so like we mentioned just a few minutes ago, how Oklahoma's rushing game hasn't looked as great lately, maybe this is the game where it all starts to come together. And again, we're not saying Oklahoma's rushing game's bad. It just hasn't been as great as it's been in years past. But 170 rushing yards per game, to me, is a concern. And if Oklahoma gets the ground game going, all bets are off. Because if they get the ground game going, they're going to get the pass game going. We expect Spencer Rattler to succeed. We expect the Oklahoma pass game to do well. But if you can run, you're going to set up the pass, and Texas will get burned. The Longhorns have only forced 8 turnovers so far this year. They have 10 sacks on the year, so a little bit of pressure, but not much considering they've played, 5 games now, 4-1. So this is a Texas team that really just needs, for me, the key for them is just enough push up front to stop the Oklahoma running game. They almost try to make that a non-factor, hold them to about 150 yards, hopefully less than that on the ground, and then get after Spencer Rattler a little bit, a guy who, as we know, has had struggles and difficulties making the right decisions. He's thrown the ball away too many times. He's committed a few turnovers that maybe he shouldn't have. There was a reason he was getting booed a couple weeks ago at home in that 3-point victory over West Virginia. So if they can shut down the run a little bit and force Spencer Rattler to stay in the pocket, stand tall, deliver in the big moments, and force him to basically do it all by himself, Texas has a chance. And at the end of the day, guys, I wholeheartedly believe that with the way Texas offense is playing, 1 or 2 interceptions from this Texas defense, 1 or 2 interceptions by Spencer Rattler could end the game for Oklahoma. 1 or 2 that turn into points for Texas could put up enough points to be an insurmountable lead to overcome, especially whenever those interceptions come and how Texas responds off of that. But 1 or 2 turnovers from Oklahoma could end up being costly, and it could end up costing them the entire game. And I wholeheartedly believe that. So we look at this game, guys. The Red River Showdown down in Dallas. Again, the Sooners are 5-0, but are getting a lot of hate. They're the 6th ranked team in the country. They're 5-0, but everybody's saying they should be winning by more. The 4 games they've played against FBS opponents, all of them have come by 1 possession. And as a top 10 team, why didn't they blow out Tulane? Why didn't they blow out a lowly Nebraska squad at home? Why didn't they blow out West Virginia at home? They need a game-winning field goal time expired to win that. Why aren't they doing it? But you have devil's advocate over here saying, hey, but they're still 5-0. They're still getting the job done. What's your team, right? So if Oklahoma wins this game over Texas, they silence all the doubters. They silence all the critics. They say, hey, guess what? Now we're 6-0, and we just beat a dang good Texas team. Who cares if it's by 1 possession? We still beat them, and we're still the favorites in the Big 12. But if Texas wins, Big 12 is wide open. The Big 12 is wide open. The door is open, yes, still for the Longhorns, yes, still for the Sooners, but Oklahoma State, maybe even Iowa State, maybe even Baylor. The conference becomes much more wide open than maybe it already was if Texas pulls off this upset. And of course, if Texas pulls off this upset, the Sooners' playoff hopes take a major, major hit. A lot is on the line on Saturday afternoon, Saturday morning, really. College game days in town, 11 o'clock a.m. kickoff per usual. A lot is on the line. And, you know, when I look at this game, I'm trying to pick a winner, it's tough. It's really, really tough. But you know what? It's been that type of year in college football. It's been that type of year. So you know what? Give me the Longhorns. Give me Texas, a team that I think is playing better than Oklahoma right now, a team that I think you can make an argument has the better offense than Oklahoma right now, and if they just get 1 or 2 stops on the Sooners, a game that I do think is back and forth, plenty of points scored, but 1 or 2 stops, 1 or 2 turnovers, that might just be enough to give Steve Sarkisian the signature win early into his Texas career. I like the Longhorns to pull off the upset in Dallas, not only shaking up the Big 12, but shaking up the entire college football world. It's been that type of year. We've seen upsets left and right, and we're calling for another big one on Saturday. Hook 'em horns. We're going with Texas. So guys, as always, thank you so much for watching us here at the Gridiron Expert on YouTube. Make sure to continue to like, comment, subscribe, share our videos, and check out everything down in the description below. Go sign up for those expert picks over on our website, thegridironexpert.com. Some of the best college football and NFL spread picks in the entire country over there. It has been for the last 3 years. Will be again this year, already kind of is, so make sure to go take a look at that. Sign up. One of the best decisions you'll make all year long. And once again, guys, as always, thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you next time right here on the Gridiron Expert.